Manx Radio Sport.
Good evening, welcome back to Friday Sport Preview. Rob Pritchard and the team with you for the next hour, looking ahead to the latest of the island's sporting action coming up over the next couple of days. Coming up tonight, the rescheduled Railway Cup semi-finals are in the spotlight as Isle of Man football fixtures return. Nearly 2 weeks after tasting defeat for the first time in nearly 2 months, FC Isle of Man will be hoping to rediscover their rhythm at home on Saturday. In rugby, Douglas's search for their first away win of the season in Regional 2 North West continues on the road tomorrow. Another big weekend for Manx boxing with 2 Island Pro fighters returning to the ring, and a rare weekend of on-island England Hockey Championship action awaits. That's all to come this evening. A very warm welcome to Friday Sport Preview on Manx Radio. I'm Rob Pritchard, joined by our usual team of correspondents to preview all the sporting action on Island and further afield coming up this weekend. And after the decimated fixtures caused by Storm Dara last weekend, we're feeling much more optimistic going into this weekend. And speaking of feeling optimistic going into the weekend, one of those is our football correspondent, Tony Mepham. Tony, very good evening.
I'll let you know tomorrow, Rob, about 5 o'clock when we've got the 2 Railway Cup semi-final results in. That'll be a good place for me because at the moment, struggling. A few games have called off. We'll come to that now. But yeah, 1 or 2 pitches struggling.
Indeed. Well, just for context, for those who didn't know, last weekend the Plum Properties Railway Cup semi-finals were due to be played last weekend, but of course all Saturday fixtures last weekend were postponed due to the conditions caused by Storm Dara. They have been moved now to this weekend, and that's where we'll start. The Plum Properties Railway Cup semi-finals. Both games due to kick off at 1:15pm tomorrow. Ayr United, the defending champions, up against Laxey. That's due to be played at Andrews Playing Fields as it stands at the moment, Tony, but we were actually just talking off air just a few moments ago. We understand there could be some changes to that.
Yeah, there could be, Rob. We're working with both clubs at the moment. The officials are on standby. We've got the bowl on standby. But where we are, at lunchtime today at 12:30, the pitch was classed as unfit. Referee checked it. Yes, it was video, but there's pools of water on it. I walked it myself as well, and I wouldn't have wanted to play on it. And I don't think it was safe. But since then, some work has been done on it this afternoon. It's looking playable now. They think it's playable. So we're going to have a pitch inspection tomorrow morning between 8 and 9 o'clock. So 9 o'clock's the latest we can let the clubs know. And if there is a problem, the game will be played at the bowl. If the pitch is fit and there's no weather coming in throughout the morning and possibly early afternoon, then there's a good chance it might be played at Ayr. But I'll speak to Laxey about half an hour after the programme, but that news has just come in now, and thanks to Nick Hurt from Ayr United, just explaining the condition of the pitch.
Thanks for that, Tony. So just on top of that, before we take a look at the game itself, wherever it may be played, when can we possibly expect a decision by? No doubt the teams and maybe some supporters will be interested to know as soon as possible.
I would hope to have it ready for you, Rob, for the 9 o'clock news in the morning, because Nigel Cameen's going to go up at 8 o'clock, mark the pitch, because that was something that we were worried about. So as long as it doesn't rain tonight, they'll be able to mark that pitch. But the referee will get him up there as well, early doors, so we can get it sort of passed. Because if it does go ahead at the bowl, we've got in place, hopefully, a 1:15 kick-off there as well. So it'll be 30 minutes earlier than normal for a St Mary's game. That's due to the teams that are training before usually the official game. They will allow us to go on a little bit sooner, so that's good news. So everyone's working together, which is fantastic, but obviously with the weather last week and what we had today, certainly early afternoon, Robert, hasn't helped things.
But we'll wait and see. Tony, thanks very much on that. Let's take a look at the game itself, though. Ayr United, the defending Railway Cup champions, as well as the defending Premier League champions at the moment, up against Laxey, who are third in the Canada Life Men's Premier League as it stands. Ayr United, Tony, it was only about 3 or 4 weeks ago we may have looked at this fixture and wondered Laxey could have a real challenge on their hands. And that's not to say it can't be tomorrow, but Ayr United have just started dropping a few points in the top flight, and that's allowed Peel to go ahead of them on goal difference. So for Laxey, is this a good time to be playing Ayr?
I think it's a good time, and not necessarily the way it's gone for Ayr United, conceding an awful lot of goals defensively. But I think Laxey are probably at their strongest tomorrow, which is great news for Johnny Palmer. And when you look at the players that they've got there, George Burrows, Cameron Avery have been in great form this season, Tommy Kenny as well. But young players like Ben Ramsey have come in, and Jack Keelan, who've really impressed. I noticed he was sub last week. Ben Wazzer will score goals for them. So all round, I think Johnny Palmer's quite happy with the way things are going. But when you look at Ayr, and you've rightly picked up on it, they've dropped some silly points, if you like. That 2 points that they lost last week against the week before they lost against Oncom was real setback for them. But again, they've got good players in there. Harry Best, Luke Corlett's been doing well, Lewis Moran, you've got Cameron Toran, then you've got the usual suspects, Sean Kelly, Jamie Callister, Johnny Shields, Declan Cummins. Though, they're going to sort of come out with great performances. But I think Ayr have certainly got to defensively tighten up. Laxey are ready to exploit it. And, wherever it's going to be played, tighter pitch at Ayr might just favour Ayr's set pieces with the throw-ins. But if it's at the ball, it's wide open.
But just on Ayr United there, yes, the people will have looked at the fact that they've dropped points in their they've drawn their last three Premier League games. But in a couple of those, they trailed against St John's United. They also trailed against Ramsey, and then before that, trailed heavily as well against Moran and came back to win. So there is always that fighting spirit in that Ayr United team, even if they're up against it. Well,
definitely, and that's Nick Hurt coaching the players to just tell them what they want and giving them the belief at half time. Because when you look at it with Ramsey, they were 2-0, 3-0 up. You look at them against Moran, they were 3-0 up, and the boys came back and beat Moran 4-3. That's great character. And when you've got the sort of mindset of players that Nick Hurt has got, then they're always in with a chance. But I just think at the moment, Rob, they're very vulnerable at the back, and that's unusual for them. They've got a really good goalkeeper, Nathan Tier, and then defensively, for whatever reason, whether it's the attacks of the opposition that are exploiting the spaces, but it's two great games in prospect. And Ayr United against Laxey, you're looking at Laxey sort of, if you like, having a real quality team, but they've got to click on the day to try and get something away from Ayr.
I think I mentioned before, just for some clarity, I think I mentioned that Laxey were third in the table. They're fourth. They're behind Corinthians on goal difference.
Yeah, you upset me there,
just to I can see the evil eye contact from across the room. The listener can't see that. Right, and the other game, which I'll be covering personally, is over at Ballafletcher, and that does see Corinthians third in the table, up against Peel, who went top of the table last time out a couple of weeks ago with that win over Ramsey, leapfrogging Ayr United on goal difference. Tony, on paper at least, a difficult one to call possibly, given the fact that Corinthians have beaten Peel already this season.
Well, they have. I think it's a big plus for them this week because they've got Thomas Brown back, who's probably the best player on the island at the moment. He's been in an excellent form, scoring plenty of goals, a lot of individual goals, and himself and Rhys Oates have really got a good partnership going up front, and we'll just wait and see how it goes around him because, again, good young players coming through. Scott Horn down that left-hand side, left full-back. You've got also Sean Brown, Thomas's brother now, that's been brought into the team. Ryan Tate has done a really good job in that number 1 jersey. When you look at Oscar Bignell in there and other players as well, experience of Matthew Woods, the experience of Dan Pickering, then, Peel start off, I think, in their eyes as slight favourites. But as you rightly say, Corinthians were 1-0 down against Peel at Douglas Road and beat them 2-1. So they're playing with a lot of flair at the moment. Great news for Corinthians. Sammy Corkle is back. So he'll probably play maybe on that left-hand side for Corinthians. When you look at the forward line, Jao Marquez. You've also got Joe Middleton, who've been in great form. Joe Middleton, third in the goal-scoring record now, behind Thomas Brown and Sean Kelly. Shows what sort of form he's been in. Midfield, Declan Blake and you look at Nathan Little have been absolutely fantastic, but the back four have got to be so disciplined tomorrow against Thomas Brown because he's an absolute nightmare to deal with. He's quick, he can run off the ball and he can finish from distance, and that's going to be, there's a bit of a problem I think for Corinthians tomorrow with the goalkeeper. Matthew Quirk looks as if he's broken a finger, so he won't be available. So Jack Curran will come in, and he's really good, Jack Curran, and he's been there before in the first team, so he knows what to do. but just right the way through, the experience of Darren Kane and also Stuart Smith is so valuable. And then Noah Val's gone down that right-hand side with Josh Ridings. It bodes well for Corinthians. They've done it before. They've got no fear factor. The pitch is in good condition, but against Peel, it's going to be on the day who gets it. And I'm just going to plump for Corinthians just.
And just to add a bit of context on the defensive side of things before we move on, Peel, they've actually only conceded once in their last 4 games in all competitions as well. So maybe just starting to shore up a little bit more. Those are your Plum Properties Railway Cup semi-finals taking place tomorrow. Kicking off at the earlier time of 1:15 p.m. Those games to accommodate for the possibility of extra time and penalties if required. And if you missed it a few minutes ago as well, there will be further confirmation coming during Saturday morning as to the venue for Ayr United versus Laxey. Just some final checks being held over at Ayr United's ground. There is a backup potentially in place at the Bowl in Douglas if needs be. Looking elsewhere, we have the usual selection of league matches taking place, all kicking off at 2 p.m. Starting off in the Canada Life Men's Premier League, and 2 sides very much in need of points towards the bottom of the table at the moment. Over at Croyt Lowry, Russian United will host Moran.
Yeah, and you're right. And when you look at it, 10th and 13th, Moran are 13th. And you look at Russia, when you look at the team, Rob, it's very, very strong. And when you look at young players now, are just getting that wiser, with experience. Scott Mason being one. You've also got people like Cameron Dudley as well, Matty Lamb, Charlie Jackson's experience in there as well because he's been around a while. And it looks really good. Cameron Dudley, it's a real problem to deal with. But when you look at Mark Blair in goal, you've also got Stevie Riding in there. They've got a really good blend of players, but it's a question of can they get it going on the day, because it's going to be difficult against Moran, because Moran know they're into their final sort of, if you like, 11 matches to try and get some points to survive in this Premier League. And, I think David Brew knows that it's going to be a tough old game. I'm going to go for Russian to win it. I just think tomorrow the squad looks quite strong and they'll take the 3 points.
Well, we were due to have a game over at Billygoat Park between Foxdale and St John's United. That's no longer the case, Tony.
Yeah, to be fair, the Storm last week made a big hit up at Billygoat because it was the goalpost blew over face down, which meant that the weight and everything came from the back to the front and bent the corner bottoms of the post. But that's not the reason why it's off. The pitch, obviously, the weather has not been good for it. They haven't been able to cut it, so it's just something that they need to get a couple of dry days to get it sorted out. But they looked at it and they did a bit of work on it this morning, early lunch, but they couldn't do it, and unfortunately that game's gone. Foxdale against St John's.
And the other game in the Canada Life Men's Premier League between 2 sides who impressed quite a few people during last season, and one of them in particular impressed at the start of the season, but have just not been able to kick on into league terms, at least so far. And that's Union Mills, mid-table at the moment, and 7th in the table, up against a Ramsey side down in 9th, Tony. Yeah,
and I think Ramsey will be looking at it and saying what's gone wrong. Nothing's really gone wrong. It's just that they're developing a very good side down there, and sometimes you have to alter things to sort of make changes to allow the younger players coming in. And when you look at their team sheet, it's littered with real good players. And when you look, Greg Hepburn's come in now, so he'll keep things nice and solid. Callum Hudson, I noticed him last year. He's the young Hudson coming through and the final one, and he's a really good defender, good player. You've got Adam Karush as well. He's a transfer from Laxey. He's gone to Ramsey and done well. Jamie Agnew has been a great signing for them a couple of years ago from Douglas Royal. So right the way through, if Dylan Pickles plays, then it's sort of questionable whether Union Mills can sort of stop him from scoring goals. But when you look at Union Mills as well, they've got one of the better goal scorers in the league, and that's Dominic McCarry-Brennan. And then when you look at players in that team, you've got Jamie Young, you've got Aaron Miller, you've got also Alex Higgerty in there, and Lewis Hicks has been playing really well. Then Union Mills can mix it, and they've probably got one of the most passionate managers in the league, to be honest with you, because he's like a Mikel Arteta, where he just gives it all from the sideline and just asks so much from his players. And I've listened to his team talks, and they're absolutely amazing. They must be heads must be busting all the information he's trying to get into them. But it's going to be a really close game. I think Ramsey have just got the edge to it, and I'm going to go for Ramsey to take the victory.
Very well. Okay, Ardern and Drug Unlimited, Division 2. The battle rages on, particularly towards the top of the table. Just 1 point separates Douglas High School Old Boys at the top, who are still unbeaten after 11 games, and Braddon looking to hop straight back up into the top tier. Strong start to the season for them on 28 points to Old Boys 29. Elsewhere, before we get to those two teams, we'll get to a side that started to pick up form recently, and that is Castletown, starting to move up to 4th in the table, up against Douglas and District, who are still the only team in Division 2 without a win this season.
Yeah, let's look at Castletown first. I watched them last week, and against Colby, I thought it was going to be a really tough game for them, and I didn't think that they could probably take the points. First half wasn't the greatest. They sort of kept chipping away, but in the second half they got it together. Lucas Simmons was fantastic. He's quick. They've got to try and deal with that one. And when you look at sort of other players in that team as well, Tom Moore, one of them, he scored a goal, and you've got Ash Egan as well. Then they put it together really well in the second 45. As well with Colby, it was just hard going for them. But as you rightly say, D&D, but you look at their result recently, Rob, against Braddon. They only lost 3-0, so they can mix it with the big boys when they get it sort of going on the day. And with people like Paul Gavin, Richard Radcliffe scoring plenty of goals, and Adrian Skrabucha, then with those there, hopefully trying to get the goals to win the game for them could prove difficult. But I think Castletown in a bit of form at the moment, certainly from that second half last week.
And elsewhere, Michael United, of course, rebuilding over the last month or so, up against a Pulrose United team who have been steady so far this season, sitting in mid-table. Yeah,
they have, and credit to Pulrose, because they've sort of been building, haven't they, Rob, over the last couple of years. They've got players in there totally committed to the club, and it's fantastic to see. Michael, we know the story, what's gone on there. They lost too many players, and they're just patching up just to, keep things going, and then they'll rebuild again next year. It's going to be a tough game for Michael. I can't see them winning this one. I've got to go for Pulley to take the victory.
And now we get to the top two battling it out at the top towards the moment. And the first of those is second place to Braddon. And they're going to be at home against Douglas Royal, Tony, who, whilst they may have inherited a few players in recent weeks, just don't seem to have quite kicked on at the moment in their quest to push back up the table.
No, they haven't. It takes a while. New players come in. And, when you look at Bailey Ashton, he came from Michael. Good young player. Jordan Cowan as well. I think his first game when he signed from Michael to Douglas Royal, he scored a hat-trick. And Jordan has done that all his life. He can score goals for fun, and he's not particularly old neither. But when you look at Braddon, the experience that they've got in there, but the three probably standout players for them is you've got Mark O'Neill, Liam Kane, who came from Michael, who can score goals as well, and you've got Dan Conrad, who can supply him from that left-hand side. I don't think Douglas Royal have got enough, so I'm going to go for Braddon to keep the pressure at the top of the table and take the win.
And finally, down south at Clackvane, a Maloo side who, despite striker Kieran Krippner being in outstanding form this season, have still only got 2 wins from their opening 10 games at the moment, and it doesn't look like it's going to get easier from this weekend. They welcome the unbeaten league leaders, Douglas High School Old Boys. 11 games played, 9-1, 2 draws and no defeats so far, Tony.
Yeah, it'll be a physical battle, this one, because when you look at Maloo, the players that they've got in there, they're tricky to deal with, and the young players of Old Boys have got to be on the game. Paddy Cooper won, bags of experience in there, as you say, Kieran Krippner, but don't forget his younger brother Brandon, who could score goals, and then you throw in Dean Kinley as well. He could score goals and absolutely pull a side apart. But Old Boys have gelled this sort of more experienced side with these younger players like George Kearns, Cameron Brew. Nathan Quayle's been fantastic in goal for Old Boys. Not the tallest of keepers, but does the job. JJ Belander will mix it in that midfield, but they dropped them points against Governors, so it shows that you're in with a chance, Maloo. So see how it goes tomorrow afternoon, but I think Old Boys will take the win.
Very well. Let's take a quick look through the combination leagues. We'll start off 5 games in Canada Life Combination 1 tomorrow.
Yeah, Moran against Russian. Russian will just keep chipping away at the top of Combination 1, so I have to go for Russian to win. St John's against Foxdale. Even though St John's have slipped up, dropped quite a few points so far in the first half of the season, I see St John's winning that. Ramsey against Union Mills. Ramsey challenging to win this league again. I think they'll beat Union Mills. Laxey against Corinthians. I go with Corinthians to win that. And Onken against Peel. There's no telling any lies. Look at the top of that table. Onken is sitting there nice and pretty. I'm going to go for Onken to beat Peel.
And last but certainly not least, on Saturday, Ardern and Drug Unlimited Combination 2. We were due to have 5 games. We now have 4. Yeah, we have. We've just lost that Pulrose against Michael. Michael unable to field a team. So the other games, Ramsey Centre against Douglas Athletic. I go for Ramsey Centre and Old Boys to win. D&D against Castletown. I'm going to go for a draw in this one. Douglas Royal against Braddon. I think Braddon have got enough. And Governors Athletic against Jims. I go with the home side. Governors Athletic take the points. Tony, thank you very much for just the moment.
Manx Radio Sport.
Another team not to kick a ball last weekend was FC Isle of Man, who are looking to get back on the winning trail tomorrow night in the NWCFL Premier Division. They'll host Stockport Town at the Bowl in Douglas, with kick-off on Saturday scheduled for 6 p.m. Well, despite their continued high standing in the table, the Manx side have secured just 1 point from a possible 6 in their last 2 games and lost to their latest opponents in the reverse fixture at Stockport Sports Village in late August. However, FC Isle of Man manager Paul Jones believes the performances from his side in the last 2 outings have been better than the scorelines suggest.
The levels have been good, as I've said all season. I think we created a lot of chances in both games, and with a little bit more ruthlessness in the final third, I think we would have scored a good number of goals and we'd have probably won both games. But I think the bit that we've been reminding each other about is our standards out of possession and making ourselves very difficult to score against. I think the goals we have conceded in the last 3 games have been soft. The goals that other teams have had to work a lot harder to score earlier on in the season, and I'm not saying this is what we think, but there was that feeling we're creating lots of chances, so we'll keep creating chances and eventually we'll score, and it doesn't matter if we concede 1 or 2. Well, it always matters in this league. We know that our chances of winning a football match are hugely improved if we concede fewer than 2 goals in a game, so 0 or 1, then we're likely to win more games than we draw. So that has to be the focus, and that's what we've been reminding everybody of in the last couple of weeks.
And Stockport Town, they beat you 2-1 on their patch earlier in the season, back in August, I believe it was. Yeah. What qualities did you see in them that you'll have to be wary of?
They didn't give up all over the pitch. They scored a very early goal and a very late goal, and in a game that we felt that we, again, probably could have got something from and created enough chances to have got something from. So, they didn't give us a second. They worked ever so hard. They put the ball in behind us and didn't let us play out easily, and had some good quality in set plays. And the last goal came from a counter-attacking situation that we didn't control particularly well. So, their form was very good at that point, and they were, higher up in the league than we were, and roles have reversed a little bit, but they're still able to pull out some really good performances. They beat Chadderton recently, and Chaddy just went top of the league. So, they're a dangerous team on their day, and a young team full of energy and wanting to play football, and we're going to have to be right on it to compete with them.
5th in the table still, after quite a few weeks now as well. And I think one thing we spoke about before the eventually postponed game against Prestwich Hayes, you said at the time that maybe we have looked at that a little too much rather than focusing on our games sometimes in certain areas. How difficult from your side of things and the players' side of things is it to try and completely detach yourself from thinking about what others are doing and what that battle is around you?
Yeah, it's I don't know, maybe, when you and I do interviews, how much I'm talking about is going on in my head versus the players. I don't know, because I don't spend a lot of time to talk about these sort of things. Obviously, we keep an eye on what's going on. But I don't know, there's maybe a feeling we were in a good place and we just needed to keep that going, and then forgetting that of all the hard work over the last 2 years that we've needed to put in to just get to that place. And if we take a backward step at any point, then it's going to be hard to get that momentum again. And I just feel like the last couple of weeks we had some really good momentum, but we didn't quite push enough to keep that going, and that could be because we were getting comfortable and looking at our league position and going, actually the teams below us can't get above us even if they win the games in hand, so we're okay, we can rest a bit. Well, we can't. In this level of football, in this league in particular, you can't rest. It's it's brutal. So we've maybe learned a little bit of a lesson in the last couple of games, and the rest has probably come at a good time, and everyone's come in this week and been properly on it and back to how we saw they were 4 or 5 weeks ago, which is not something I can say in some of the training sessions before the AFC game and before the Burscough game and before the Pilkington game. It just, we weren't quite at our levels, and we were certainly back at them this week, so I hopefully that'll carry over into the game against Stockport.
You've half answered what I was going to ask about the break there, whether it's been beneficial or maybe a bit of a disadvantage. You say there's some quite good aspects of it. So what have you seen this week that's maybe given you a bit more cause for encouragement compared to, like you say, the last couple of weeks where you felt you maybe a little bit off the pace in training?
I wouldn't say we were flat, but I think we've waited for things to happen in games and then reacted to them rather than been on the front foot. And I think the games where we went on a bit of a winning run and an unbeaten run, we were very much on the front foot and not waiting for something to happen that went in our favour or that we had to react to. And I think this week in training, I certainly see a very energetic, enthused group. And I'm not saying we haven't seen that, but it's a tough season. We played a lot of football. We've played an awful lot of away games. The 2 away games, Pilkington and AFC, they take it more out of you the later into the season you do them, because it's just accumulation in effect. And And I think everyone was, whether they'd admit it or not, was probably ready for a bit of a break. And, the fact there was no flights going in or out of the island on Saturday was probably a bit of a blessing in some ways. And it gave everybody a chance to spend some time with family and friends and just take a break away from football. And it certainly seems, anyway, from what I've seen so far this week, that's worked wonders for everybody.
FC Isle of Man manager Paul Jones ahead of his side's tie against Stockport Town in the NWCFL Premier Division tomorrow night at the Bowl at 6 p.m. And if you're not heading down to the Bowl, we at Manx Radio have got you covered. Full live match commentary. FC Isle of Man versus Stockport Town at 6 p.m. on Manx Radio, DAB and AM 1368. We'd love to have you along as always. The FC Isle of Man squad for tomorrow is as follows. It is Sam Baines, Luke Booth, Jamie Corlett, Tom Creer, Jacob Crook, Sean Doyle, Danny Gerrard, Dan Hattersley, Charlie Higgins, Harley Jackson, Adam Killier, Alex Maitland, Rona McDonnell, Dean Pennington, Carl Watson and Steve Whitley. Well, Tony, before we let you go, just to get your quick thoughts on that, it's been an extended break for FC Isle of Man, and we heard from Paul Jones just there that maybe he thinks it could have been a bit of a benefit for the players, really, a chance to switch off a little bit and then come back into it. He's been pleased with training this week. Do you think it could be of a benefit to them?
I would say so, because it's been pretty intense, hasn't it? Because, it's not as if they're looking for the points to stay up. They're looking for the points to get into the playoffs, which is absolutely fantastic. Great to see Alex Maitland back in the squad after his hamstring injury, because he's been so important for them at the back. And when you look at other people there, Luke Booth, who can score these wonder goals that we've seen in the games that we've been covering, and all round, they're pretty well getting good fitness from them. And it's good to see one or two. Mikey Williams is back training. You got also Dan Simpson as well back in. So it's putting pressure right the way across the board for the squad, and bodes well for the future.
And just quickly as well, this has been a time of year, particularly in the last couple of years, where FC Isle of Man have statistically struggled in the December and January time. And looking at some of the games they've got going into New Year and just after, they're on the 21st, so next weekend they're away at Lower Breck, around them in the table. And then one of their nearest playoff rivals, FC St Helens, visit here on the 28th of December. Early January, Glossop at home, followed by a trip to Bury as well. So how important could this time of year be for FC Isle of Man for their season? Very
important, because this is sort of the games that you want to win. You want to get the points. You take away points, like we need Bury to drop some points. So FC Isle of Man have done quite well against Bury, to be fair. So we'll wait and see. But when you look at teams like Lower Breck and St Helens, they all sort of have got good sides, but so have FC Isle of Man. And at the moment, they're enjoying a great run. And let's hope it continues to keep their opportunity of getting promotion at the end of the season into the higher league.
Indeed, Tony, thank you very much there. So, yeah, just a reminder, if you're not heading down to the Bowl for that NWCFL Premier Division fixture tomorrow between FC Isle of Man and Stockport Town, we've got you covered on Manx Radio with full live match commentary from myself and Tony Mepham on Manx Radio, DAB and AM 1368 from 6 o'clock tomorrow night. That's all for the football side of things, but still plenty more to come after 6 o'clock. We're going to be taking the latest rugby fixture for Douglas away from home. All England Hockey Championship action in hockey, and a big pro boxing match coming up as well.
Manx Radio Sport.
Welcome back to Friday Sport Preview on Manx Radio. Turning to rugby, and Douglas, they're still searching for a first away win of the season, and that search continues this weekend in Regional 2 Northwest. Phil Kringle's side will be looking to try and replicate some of their excellent recent home form on the road at Widnes on Saturday afternoon. Both sides are similarly placed in the league standings right now, so how close a game could be on the cards? Well, here's Manx Radio's rugby correspondent Dave Christian with his thoughts.
The interesting point for Douglas means that this is now the start of the second half of the season for them. Technically it isn't, because they've got an outstanding fixture against Eccles, which they play next week, but this was going to be the start of part two of the season. Widnes they played in the opening week at Portashee. They lost that one, but came away with enough to give them some hope for the rest of the season. And of course, their last three home games they've been unbeaten. We fancied they'd pick up points last week against Wellington Park. They didn't, but that was down to Storm Darragh rather than anything else. Now, Widnes are lying 5th place in the standings in Regional 2 Northwest. Won 6, lost 4 from their 10 games. Douglas are 8th, won 4, lost 6. Douglas, however, are going good at the moment. They've got 24 points, including a whole host of bonus points that they've picked up. And Widnes are only 5 points clear of them. So a bonus point win for Douglas on Saturday will give them potentially a 5th place, depending on other results. Unfortunately for Douglas, the top end of the table is rather segregated from everywhere else. Forward, Waterloo, Sandbach and Bowden all running away with it, all got 40 plus points. And then the next little cluster is Vale of Loon, Widnes, Burnage, Altrincham, Kersal and Douglas, all in the 20s. Vale of Loon just got 31 points, but they're all sort of pretty closely bunched together. So on paper, Douglas perhaps could pick off a 4th place this season if results go their way, but you're suspecting that the top 3 now are untouchable. Last week at Winnington Park, they had an excellent team sheet, great looking squad, perhaps one of the strongest away sides they've taken this season. Unfortunately, they couldn't get to go, so fingers crossed that those guys all available again this week. Sam McCord was there. The only real notable missing name was Bryn Snellgrove, which means a little bit of a reshuffle in the 9-10 jerseys. And last week, Nathan Robson switched from 9 to 10, and Brendan Kelly came in the number 9 jersey, scrum half, where he started the season. So before Nathan Robson moved from Ramsey to Douglas, which was a mid-season jump, Brendan Kelly was in at scrum half for Douglas, so he can hold his own in that position. Robson's already had a game for Douglas in the 10 jersey. He can kick as well as fulfil all the other duties of a competent number 10, so there's no harm in placing him there. They've got plenty of speed outside. James Ross was a player that impressed me 2 weeks ago in that home win. He came on as a late substitute. I think on the team sheet last week for Winnington Park, they had him starting. So for me, that was a positive move. He looked really, really good. But like I said, he only got 15 minutes at the end. He deserves a little bit more. And I think the feeling is he's had either a hamstring or a calf injury that's been niggling him since the start of the season. So he's just coming back to fitness now, which indicates that he might be a lively prospect for the second half of the season. And if it goes the way these last 3 home games have, I'm confident Douglas can do great things post-Christmas.
And looking at Douglas slightly more in general, where they are in the table, and given the fact there is quite a contrast between their home and away form, it's a long way in the season to go, but how positive do you think Phil Cringle and his team will feel as to where they are at this point?
I'm pretty certain that I think Phil's going to want to get the monkey off his back with this away form thing. If he can pick up some points, we've got Winnington Park to come. That'll be rearranged. Don't think we've got a new date for that yet. If they can get something at Widnes on Saturday, and they can pick something up against Eccles next week in that rearranged game, which will be at Portashee on Saturday the 21st. Points from those 2 games will give them a massive lift, and Phil will be looking at that bonus point column in the league table, and that indicates scoring 4 tries or more in a game, or losing by 7 points or less. And particularly those losing bonus points, that means they were within 7 points of turning that defeat into a win. 7 points is just 1 score to level things up. 1 converted try was the only difference, and he'll be looking at that as a massive positive. They're scoring tries when they're going forward with the ball. They're defeated, but only narrowly in some games, and it doesn't take that much to turn the corner. We've seen it a couple of years ago when they got promoted to this particular level in the rugby pyramid. I think they brought in Carl Murray, the Kiwi, as a player coach, and Carl had inherited a team from Tom Waterworth that was in exceptionally good condition and pretty much ready to roll. I think they'd had 6 losing bonus points the season before. So the amount of input that Carl Murray had to put in as a coach was very, very limited. The guys turned the corner, they won their promotion, and they've been holding their own since. They've not quite got the impetus to kick on, but I'm sure that's not far away. And a good run towards the end of the season, once we get into the post-Christmas fixtures, I'm sure will put them in a really good position.
For some of the newer faces that have come into that Douglas team, obviously we are now quite a few games into the season. How do you think those newer additions to the Douglas team have been faring so far?
Well, the first one that does stick out was Nathan Robson. He'd not played at this level before. He made the mid-season jump from Ramsey. From the minute he arrived, I think he had 1 game on the bench, and then he's straight in. And he was straight in starting at 9 or perhaps 10 on some of the away games. So the coaches there have obviously recognised his abilities as a player. The last home game, I had a look at one of the other new signings, Blake Everson. Small in stature, but gets right over the ball in the tackle position. Really low centre of gravity, and he gets latched onto that ball if a tackle player hits the ground, and he's very difficult to shift. He got man of the match in that last game, so he's really impressive as well. Remember, Harry Cartwright's in there. James Ross impressed me. There's plenty of talent there.
Manx Radio Sport.
Elsewhere, another big weekend awaits for Manx boxing, with two more of the Isle of Man's pro fighters returning to the ring this weekend. Jamie Devine and Jade Burden, both undefeated, will be back in action on Saturday and Sunday respectively. For Burden, it'll be her first fight since her victorious pro debut in April. She'd been due to compete in September before a late opponent's withdrawal. Despite the extended break, Burden insists she's ready to go and end the calendar year on a high.
Yeah, preparations have been really good. As you could obviously imagine, I was desperate to get this one done before the year's out, with obviously the frustrations that come with it in September. So yeah, I'm just really excited, really looking forward to it. Yeah, I'm good to go.
When you speak of September there, for those who don't know, of course, you were due to have a fight in Blackpool. Your opponent was a late withdrawal, and then the replacement as well was unable to fight as well for other reasons. But how much has this tested your mindset a little bit? Has it been quite a frustrating time that you've not been able to get in the ring?
Yeah, I think so. I think, you got to remember as well, being an athlete on the Isle of Man and everything being in the UK, it's not just up the motorway for people that have bought tickets. It's potentially a day off work. It's a financial expense of hotels and flights and boats and what have you. So for me, it was just more the stress of letting people down and the disappointment. And, with the pro game, it's all about selling tickets. So, yeah, it wasn't easy, but I think it just adds to kind of the resilience and, the fortitude with it all. And that, life is never straightforward, is it? So you've got to prepare for the ups and downs, unfortunately. But we go again. I'm still hungry, and I feel like I've not had a break since July. So obviously I'm keen and ready to go. And then after this, I can kind of let my hair down and enjoy the festivities. So, yeah.
And speaking of the upcoming fight, in terms of your opponent, it's a name I think you've been due to face previously, but it hasn't quite worked out. For those who don't know, what do you know about your opponent at the moment?
Yeah, so she actually boxed last weekend, so I had a little look, and she is resilient. And don't get me wrong, she's very tough. It's not someone that I'm going to be able to walk through. I'm going to have to, take my time and hopefully try and break her down. But I'm early on in my professional career, so it's all about gaining the experience. But yeah, I just want to put on a good performance and enjoy it most of all.
Because you are, of course, as you've just alluded to, at the early stages of your professional career in the sport, when you go into fights such as the one coming up, how do you balance between not just trying to get victory, but also developing your own game at the same time for the long term?
I think you've got to work on kind of, obviously we always have a game plan, but I think at the minute it's just more about, working on kind of weaknesses and areas, like I've spoke to you before about stylistically going from amateur to pro. It's so different, so I really kind of had to learn. I'm normally a little bit 100 miles an hour aggressive. Have to learn to kind of be a little bit more patient, sit down on my shots. We've got 8-ounce gloves, so it does hurt when you get hit. So all about obviously making sure I keep myself safe without switching off. So it's kind of detrimental that I kind of, what I've learned recently, start putting that into place, because next year when I start going 6, 8, 10 rounders, it's important that I get these basics right now.
You got off to a winning start in your pro debut early this year. Jamie Devine is undefeated in his first year of fights in the pro ranks. Matthew Rennie this month involved in a title fight in London, and his younger brother Sam Rennie also still undefeated in his early start in the pro ranks as well. How good is Isle of Man boxing, do you think, at the moment in general?
Oh, it's massive, isn't it? But it just shows, I'm obviously really happy for Matty getting his opportunity. He's a very, very talented fighter, and as is his younger brother Sam as well. But, it just shows the sacrifice that people have to make, because if you're comfortable just staying here, then you're not really going to get anywhere. And, you have to get off island and test yourself. And, that, like I said, it does come with sacrifice financially, and you have to kind of uproot yourself a little bit. But, if you want something and you're hungry, it just shows that if you kind of put the hard work and dedication, that there's opportunities out there.
And just finally as well, for yourself going into this, first off, how confident are you feeling that you can come away with the victory? What would it mean to you? And also, if you were to get the job done. What kind of opportunities do you think it maybe could open up for you in 2025?
Yeah, no, I'm very confident. I just think if I just stick to my own game plan, go in relaxed, enjoy it, I 100% know I'll get the job done. Yeah, and I think get this one out the way. We're looking maybe March, April time, I'll get back out and have my first 6-rounder. So maybe another 2 6-rounders, and then we look at, after that, stepping up against a prospect. And then who knows, there's, women's boxing at the minute is massive. So if I just keep putting away the people in front of me, work on what I need to work on, then there's opportunities out there. And, hopefully it makes some good away days for people of the Isle of Man, and we can, really enjoy the journey together.
That's Isle of Man professional boxer Jade Burden ahead of her second professional fight this weekend. She'll be facing Kerry Orton in what is a different venue after some late changes this week. She'll be facing Kerry Orton at the Eastside Rooms Conference Centre in Birmingham on Sunday. Speaking of the changes, if you have missed that this week, both Jade Burden and Jamie Devine had originally been due to fight on the at the same venue on the same event by VIP Boxing Promotions at the Adelphi Hotel in Liverpool this Sunday. That event has since been cancelled by VIP Boxing Promotions. Therefore, the changes, as we've mentioned, Jade Burden still fighting on Sunday, but with a change of venue to Birmingham. Meanwhile, Jamie Devine, his fight against Jairo Fernando Duran, the super featherweight contest, that's been brought forward a day, so that's now taking place tomorrow, so Saturday the 14th of December, and it's been moved on to the undercard of the Collision Course event taking place at the Exhibition Centre Liverpool tomorrow night, featuring some star names in professional boxing in Britain, including both Natasha Jonas and Lauren Price. So an exciting event to come, and Jamie Devine's fight now moved on to that one as well. And also Jade Burden has announced, well, her camp did announce this week as well, that for those fans looking to travel to watch her fight this weekend, with it now moving to Birmingham, the team has now laid on coach travel as well for those looking to attend. There would be a small cost payable to the driver, and the fighter herself has put out that information, the travel information, out on her social media channels as well. So if you are looking to maybe follow Jade Burden's progress this weekend in person, head on over to Jade the Grenade Burden social media channels for more information about travel for this weekend. So that's boxing. We'll be looking in a couple of minutes at hockey, because whilst the domestic season may have come to an end, there is a rare and exciting weekend in the England Hockey Championships coming up on Ireland over the next couple of days. We'll be back in just a few moments.
Manx Radio Sport.
Well, finally tonight on Friday Sport Preview, we're going to be taking a look at hockey, and although the domestic season may have come to an end in the last fortnight or so, there is still hockey action taking place on the Isle of Man this weekend, and it's a rare weekend at that. England Hockey Championship action is coming to the island capital this weekend, whilst there are 4 sides in total, 4 national teams from the Isle of Man involved in England Hockey Championship action over the next couple of days. To go through it all, as always, we've got our hockey correspondent Ben Cunningham. So Ben, how exciting is this, that we've got England Hockey Championship games coming to the Isle of Man this weekend?
Oh, it's massive. It's great to see, because normally we're talking about the teams going away across. So normally we're waiting for the message to come through and on how they've done. But this time we're actually going to be able to go and watch them. And I'd urge you really to please get on down to the NSC this weekend. 11 o'clock, the first fixture. Then 1 o'clock is the second fixture down at the NSC. But it's going to be a great example of just how good Manx hockey is at the moment.
Absolutely. We'll take a look at the games in more detail in just a moment. But, of course, over the last week, we have seen the development of this year's indoor finals in Manx hockey as well. There were due to be the finals held last weekend, but, of course, the conditions caused by Storm Dara caused a few issues. So, for those who don't know, could you just explain what ended up happening with the indoor finals? Because it seemed to be a little more spread out. A few things had to change.
Yeah, so the plan was the indoor finals was all meant to happen last Saturday. 2 of the fixtures got underway and got completed. However, the other 2 fixtures, which ended up being rearranged to Monday night this week just been, they were rescheduled simply because both teams just could not get to the NSC because of all the trees and debris down on the roads. So the decision was made and they were rescheduled for Monday. They did take place on Monday, so our indoor fixtures have now all been completed. As for outdoor fixtures, there's a couple still outstanding. We're just waiting on confirmation whether they're going to go ahead or not. But majority of the fixtures that need to be played will not affect anything in the leagues.
And that's the important point here, is that whether these outstanding outdoor fixtures still to be played, it wouldn't have any impact on any of the titles that have been awarded or relegations that have been decided.
No, all the titles and relegations have all been confirmed, so if these games do go ahead, it'll be a nice little bonus for them to get played before Christmas. If not, then it's no big loss. But yeah, none of the fixtures are going to affect anything in the league.
Well, it could be a quick turnaround because, of course, right at the start of 2025 is the start of the men's and ladies season. Of course, we'll come to that in a couple of weeks' time. Turning our attention then back to this weekend of the England Hockey Championship games coming up. We have 3 games taking place on Saturday. There were due to be 2 on Sunday. One of those, the Isle of Man Under-14 girls game against Timperley Under-14 girls in their England Hockey Championship competition at Edge Hill University. That has since been called off. There is another game on Sunday that was postponed from early this year due to Storm Bert. We'll come to those in a little bit. We'll come to the triple header of games taking place tomorrow. I say triple header, a double header of those are going to be at home, as we mentioned, the NSC. Very exciting indeed, and it's the first time in several years that we have had England Hockey Championship games here on the Isle of Man, and the first of those at 11 a.m. at the NSC in Douglas. Both games will be there. The Isle of Man Ladies A team will be taking on Liverpool Sefton Ladies First 11 in the England Hockey Women's Tier 2 Knockout Championships second round, Ben.
Yeah, it's going to be a big game, this. I think the Isle of Man ladies have met this team before, and they were on the wrong end of the result. They will want to definitely make amends of it this year. A really good, strong lineup for the Isle of Man ladies team, which looks really good. Jamie Brown and Sarah Blackman have been really good on their choices for the team this weekend. And yeah, our umpires for this game are Blake Kane and Tim Lehman. And it's going to be a really good game to kick off what's going to be a great day down the NSC.
Excellent. Well, we'll just take you through that Ladies A squad that's going to be appearing tomorrow. There are 4 players representing Backers Hockey Club: Martha Broderick, Lucy Cartwright, Sam Hassel and Rachel Overman. And then there's 5 from Castletown. They are Sarah Farragher, Hannah Leese, Abby Sutterby, Dulcie Tier, Evie Watterson. 1 from Harlequins, Ella Blakemore. 3 representing from Valkyries. They are Ellen Cleater, Emily Kelly and Robin Stones. And then 3 from Vikings. They are the captain Kim Carney, and then Katie Eric and Clodagh Nealon as well. Straight after the Isle of Man men's A team, they're going to be in action, and on paper at least, this looks like a really tough but exciting challenge for the Isle of Man men's A team. They're coming up against Preston men's first 11 at the NSC at 1 o'clock. Yeah,
Preston's men's first. I mean, we were talking off air, weren't we, Rob? And we were just saying that in previous years they've been right up in the thick of the hockey leagues. But since then have just come down now to where they are, and they meet our Isle of Man men's A's team, and again another strong squad named by manager Neil Crow, who he'll hope that he can get one over this Preston's men's team. But as we were saying before, Preston are no easy pushover.
Absolutely. Well, here is the men's A team, captained by Jamie Brown. He's one of 7 backers players involved, including George Harrison, Elliot Reid, Callum Robb, Andrew Whiting, Dave Whiting and Rhys Williams. 1 player from Castletown involved, and that's Archie Cox. And then we have 1 apiece from Harlequins and Valkyries as well, Will Hassel and Oscar Lace respectively. And then 5 Vikings players representing the Isle of Man men's A squad. They are Alex Andrew, Will Brideson, Tom Burrows, Eddie Cayley and Sam Spooner as well. And rounding things off on Saturday, the Isle of Man men's B team, they're away from home against West Bridgeford men's second 11.
Yeah, venue we haven't quite got confirmed yet, but that will definitely be confirmed pretty soon. But yeah, like I say, Lewis Nova Smith, the coach of this team, again naming a good strong squad, lots of young up and coming talent as well in it. So yeah, it's going to be a good test for definitely some of them players in that team, few of them young and in the Ireland junior squads. So it's great to see them getting a run out in the senior squads as well.
Indeed, and this is the Isle of Man men's B squad. 4 players from Castletown. They are Will Collister, Martin Partridge, Stephen Ronan and Corbin Stewart. The 1 from Harlequins is Liam Taverner. And then there are 5 from Valkyries: Ethan Adams, Juan Belando, Kieran Gell, Craig Killier and Tom Titsos. And then there's 5 as well from Vikings. They are John Cooper, Ben Dougal, Josh Dougal, Carl Gunyon and the captain John Verrill as well. And last but certainly not least, on Sunday, very quickly Ben, we've got around 60 seconds here, the Isle of Man Under-14 boys boys squad in Tier 2 Knockout Championship second round action. They're taking on Preston away from home at Preston.
Yeah, again, another really interesting game for our Ireland under-14s boys. I think this was the fixture that was cancelled due to Storm Bert. So I think they'll be glad that they're going to get this fixture played at long last. They've been waiting patiently. And yeah, let's hope that the boys can come back with the goods on Sunday.
Indeed, and we'll just take a look at that squad news as well as we have done for the respective teams this weekend. So the under-14 boys squad is as follows: 5 players from backers, and they are Ryan Cartwright, Ben White, Cal Joyce, Jasper Worley and Miles Stevenson. And then 2 from Castletown, Adam Ellis, Chris Heavy Compton, and then from Harlequins, Samuel Neto and Caleb Krellin. 1 from Ramsey in Charlie Dormer, and then from Valkyries, Harry Lewis, Lucas Adams and William Miller, and 1 from Vikings, and that is Henry Stewart as well. So best of luck to all the teams involved. Thank you very much, Ben Cunningham, our hockey correspondent there, and thank you for joining us once again this evening on what is the final Friday Sport preview of the calendar year 2024. We'll be back in a couple of weeks' time. So from this particular programme, don't forget there is sporting action coming up tomorrow on Saturday Live with Paul Moran, and also on Full-Time and Saturday Sport Classified with Ben Cunningham later on before match commentary of FC Isle of Man. Until next time for this programme, we'd like to wish you a very Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year as well, whatever you're doing. But from us, until next time, it's bye for now.
Manx Radio Sport.